Welcome back from the break. We are delighted to have you back and are looking forward to the next session. The panel discussion has left us with salient thoughts to further ponder upon. We heard from Neddy that the whole earth becomes a place of spiritual experience, and the power is in faith for a change, how we are in this world and how we relate to nature. Dr. Haruna Zagun Zaid then reminded us of the role of education, particularly with regard to the youth, as a way to empower them, but also for the entire human family to understand that we can learn from young people as they shape both present and future. If we leave the youth behind, we lose out on the future of humanity as a whole. And last not least, Reverend Jenny Peter from the Maluku Islands in Indonesia gave us a powerful testimony of indigenous communities who, inspired by their traditions, develop a powerful counter-narrative, a kind of a decolonial practice and a holistic eco-spiritual framework which serves as an authentic bridge among people of different faith traditions and culture. And it truly broadens our perspective. Thank you so much again. And now please join my colleague and Forum Steering Committee member, Dr. Yakubu Joseph, and I in welcoming our two speakers for our second session, designed to broaden our horizons further and to inspire us in this first part with two different perspectives on peace and environmental justice. First, we will have the privilege to listen to Ms. Angelina Okola-Charles from Kenya. She is the World Council of Churches Program Executive for Ecumenical Disability Advocates Network and brings a long-standing experience in the field, particularly with people living with disability around the world. Recently, her attention was drawn to the intersection of gender, disability, and climate change. She highlighted, against the background of a recent project she led together with Idan in Rwanda and Burundi, the resilience of girls and women living with disabilities. Her Resilience Enabled, the project is entitled. And she highlights them as important agents of change and not only passive recipients of climate change, sensitive to measures or victims of its impact. Please welcome with me Ms. Angeline Okola, who will expand on her experiences now and present to us her mini lecture. Angeline, thank you so much for joining us today and for speaking to us on this dimension of our theme we rarely engage on, so we are very pleased to listen to you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope I am audible.
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much to this particular forum. And my name, as you've heard, is Angeline Okola from the World Council of Churches, which is a program that deals with issues around disability within our churches, within our society, community. And so I will request to get some help from Christian regarding the PowerPoint presentation. Let me add that it is indeed an honor to be part of this international forum on interfaith and intercultural peace building, especially this year when the World Council of Churches launched an ecumenical decade of climate justice action, which runs from 2025 to 2034. And it is actually a prayerful response by the Global Fellowship of Churches, ecumenical partners, and all persons of goodwill to the growing climate emergency. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I would really like to share regarding an ecumenical response that we recently had in the project that has just been highlighted, Her Resilience Enabled. And I'm glad to share that we did this with 4 member churches in Burundi and Rwanda towards including persons with disabilities in their mainstream environmental justice programs, as well as what the organizations of persons with disabilities are doing on climate justice. The churches involved in the project are the Friends Church in Burundi, the Anglican Church of Burundi, the Presbyterian Church in Rwanda, and the Association of Baptist Churches in Rwanda, with the collaboration of the Federation of Persons with Disabilities in Burundi, and also the National Union of Disability Organizations in Rwanda. This we do as part of our mission as Eden, which is to improve the well-being of persons with disabilities through advocating for inclusion, participation, and active involvement in spiritual, social, economic, and structural life of the church and society. And so the 2 national federations of persons with disabilities had accompanied the churches through provision of technical support and in monitoring the project on inclusion of persons with disabilities in church development projects, and more specifically on projects on environmental justice. Next slide, please. And so from the research and observation, it was realized that East Africa region of Burundi and Rwanda from time to time experienced flash floods, landslides, drought, strong winds, rising temperatures, as well as biodiversity loss, which affects access to food and nutrition, safe water and sanitation, healthcare services and medicines, education and training, adequate housing, and decent work to the population in these countries. And so persons with disabilities, especially women and girls, are most affected by these negative impacts of climate change. But despite them forming a significant size of the population in Burundi and Rwanda, they had been overlooked or neglected when it gets to being prepared to be part of the efforts made by the countries to adapt and mitigate climate change impacts, yet they too were affected by the adverse effects of climate change. And so that left women and girls with disabilities among the most marginalized groups when it comes to building their resilience to climate change. Though Burundi and Rwanda had put in place policies and programs with the aim of building the resilience of their population to climate change, persons with disabilities were never consulted in the development of the policies and programs. The policies and programs had no proper mechanisms of including girls and women with disabilities in their implementation, monitoring, and in evaluation. And therefore, there was a need for elaborate advocacy aimed at meaningful inclusion of women and girls with disabilities and their caregivers or parents in climate resilience and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. And so in 2021, we developed a policy brief on impacts of climate change on women and girls with disabilities, which also acknowledged the commitments made by the 2 governments who had ratified the Paris Agreement on climate change and prepared nationally determined contributions, were part of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, the Convention to Combat Desertification, the Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Kyoto Protocol, as well as the National Adaptation Program of Action plans. And so far, Rwanda had submitted 3, while Burundi has submitted 2 national communications for the UNFCCC and a National Action Plan for Adaptation. Next slide, please. So there are some key issues and actions that were highlighted in this particular policy brief. First among them was a call for meaningful, informed, and effective participation of women and girls with disabilities in the ongoing climate making and decision-making processes. The second one is an urgent need to develop specific guidance based on human rights approach to ensure their participation in climate change-related actions and decision-making. Third was a call for tailor-made climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies in the ongoing programs and legislative processes. Fourth was more awareness was needed about climate change policies and plans so that women and girls with disabilities can be aware of how they are catered for in these policies and plans. And then fifth, there was a call to facilitate avenues to engage in advocacy and networking among civil society organizations, religious leaders, government decision makers, both at national and local levels, and research institutions were seen to be very key and important allies on this. And then next is to expose women and girls with disabilities to climate making and decision-making processes at the international level, as well as a need to conduct awareness raising to government decision makers, civil society organizations, religious leaders, and other actors, as most of them had very little understanding on the issues of women and girls with disabilities in climate change inclusion. This, we realized, was also based on the need to build the capacity of the existing women groups to mobilize resources and to advocate for fund allocation for them to include disability issues into climate change interventions, because that was something that they said they did not have. And next slide, please. And so you might ask, how did we do it? We had to first dismantle stigma by advocating for dignity on climate action. This we did by highlighting through data to the duty bearers that women and girls with disabilities are among the most marginalized groups when it comes to holding their resilience to climate change for their ecological survival, as well as upholding their justice and human worth. We did this also by bridging theological reflection with practical advocacy as a compelling reminder that the struggle for climate resilience must be rooted in full inclusion. We also did this by uplifting the role of religious leaders to help girls and women with disabilities get out of the false belief on climate change as the act of God and that human beings can do nothing about it. And finally, we did this by insisting that a strong advocacy by and with girls and women with disabilities inclusion is a key criteria in all climate funds, but also making sure that this fund is being used to strengthen their resilience to climate change. Next slide, please. In the project, we adhered to demonstrate how Christian traditions and values can actually dismantle stigma, advocate for dignity, and ensure that persons with disabilities are not left out of the climate action. Through our work with girls and women with disabilities, we realized that resilience is not only about ecological survival, but also about upholding justice and human worth. And by bridging theological reflection with practical advocacy, we hope that this brings a compelling reminder that the struggle for climate resilience in Africa must be rooted in inclusion and the conviction that no one is left behind. And this is by working in regions most affected by environmental shocks and implemented actions such as savings groups and climate advocacy training, directly responding to the economic and the social vulnerabilities of the girls and women with disabilities. We realized that including women in tree planting campaigns and policy engagement in the communities at the village level, which also helped break down community stereotypes, was able to foster their empowerment, and they were able to speak out. And then we also realized influencing national and provincial platforms promoting the Ministry of Environment to integrate disability considerations into strategic plans, such as the United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP Strategic Plan for Burundi. Next slide, please. The project also produced a policy brief to strengthen advocacy efforts for women and girls with disabilities, which actually served as a key foundation for subsequent initiatives through workshops, policy dialogues, and stakeholder engagement activities, thereby influencing the decision makers and the policy makers. And the project also established village savings and loans associations, which are small sort of cooperatives that help people to save and take loans from these small groupings, which was quite a valuable initiative and introduced livelihood support initiatives. There are some of the girls and the women who got involved in livestock rearing, that is keeping of chicken, keeping of pigs, keeping of goats, and also some had advanced to keeping of cows to enhance their economic empowerment. And then with the goal of reaching 250 participants, the project has actually exceeded this target by training 270 women and girls with disabilities in sustainable climate adaptation practices. The trainings have not only improved awareness, but also resulted in concrete livelihood benefits, including improved food security and nutrition. The project has also been able to leverage on Rwanda's existing climate and disaster management policies, including the National Strategy for Transformation, disability mainstreaming guidelines, district development strategies, aligning its activities with national priorities, and promoting inclusive implementation. Next slide, please. The project also built a strong evidence base through baseline study and the development of an advocacy policy brief, which was narrowed down to highlight gaps in the policy attention to girls and women with disabilities and targeted the improvements that needed to be done. And through these national platforms, a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Emergency Management and the project was successfully advocated for the integration of women and girls with disabilities into Rwanda's climate agenda, which is quite good for the sustainability of this particular project. And then environmental protection activities were actually enhanced because reforestation and riverbank protection activities, although beneficial in the long term, do not bring direct and immediate benefits to the households of women with disabilities. But we designed these interventions to generate concrete short-term benefits in the lives of the beneficiaries in order to improve their resilience by the small projects that we were doing alongside the reforestation and riverbank protection activities. Even though the project was quite small in that it was only in 2 countries, it's something that we would really like to focus and keep sharing because, next slide please. We realized that by the churches and persons with disabilities leading this process, governments and civil society organizations and stakeholders gained basic knowledge on disability inclusion, They learned how to address their needs both during and after disasters, and ensured that they integrated disability inclusive practices into broader climate change efforts in their national plans. Ladies and gentlemen, women and girls with disabilities roles in advocacy are critical to defend their rights in matters related to climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Angeline. This was a wonderful presentation which showed us how important this work on the ground is, particularly with regard to women and girls living with disability. And I'm really pleased that our audience benefits of your precious insights around advocacy, around policy making, around inclusion, and also concrete action. Because it's one thing to highlight how women and girls living with disability benefits of certain so-called transfer actions, but it is another very important aspect to empower them and to develop their capacities in leading autonomous lives and to contribute also to addressing climate change and to contribute thereby to transformation in the society as a whole. Thank you very much for underlining this so poignantly. We now come to our second mini lecture in this part of our program, and I hand over to my colleague, Dr. Yakubu Joseph, who will have the pleasure to introduce our second speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And please join me in welcoming Dr. Jacqueline Hukima-Witt. Dr. Jacqueline Hukima-Witt is First Nation and member of the Mushkego community from Canada. She is a prolific educator and activist who is committed to the preservation of the Cree culture and spirituality. Both cannot be separated from the land on which the community lives, builds its identity, and transmits knowledge and wisdom from one generation to the other. At the end of the lecture, Q&A will follow, so be prepared. Please take note of your questions and comments. You will have opportunity at the Q&A segment to also make an intervention. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Jacqueline Hukima-Witt to take the stage and give us her presentation. You're welcome, Dr. Hukima-Witt. Thank you.
Wachik, thank you for introducing me. And it's also such an honor to be part of this spiritual calling that we're all trying to find solutions with this climate crisis touching humanity and our the earth and the animals and everything that God created. Wachig msun and askoman anushka gishagak o dehtayan ninguishmaga gashmanga tukudistan. Okay, so we'll start now. I'm going to ask my husband to move the slides for me so I can concentrate on my presentation. Thank you again. And so the first, okay. Okay, so as being a Native woman and Indigenous person, all my relations to everybody, and I will be presenting on the Indigenous perspective of interconnectedness of life, spirituality, land, and peace. And first of all, to make it like spiritual, and how we are listening with our being. I want you also to visualize as we connect using our other senses in learning about life. So I want to quote on the elder Crowfoot. For him, what is life? He says it's the flash of the firefly in the night. Is this the breath of the buffalo in the winter time? Is this the little shadow that runs across the cross and loses itself in the sunset? So I just say a little few 3 words there, just that you hear it. And then, so creation on earth. So the indigenous understanding of life is based in our spirituality, which is centered on the notion of our relationship to the whole creation. We call the earth our mother, the animals and plants our brothers and sisters, the rocks our grandfathers, and even what biologists describe as inanimate we call our relatives. And that's from Stan McKay, River Cree Nation. And there's also that the relationship with creation is interactive. Rather than natural resources being extracted, we receive the gifts from Mother Earth as gifts, which means that we respect the giver in this, the earth, the plants, the animals, the water, in a way that their existence is not threatened by destruction or taking too much. Okay, at first I will start off with the song.
How long have I known you, oh Canada? I've known you when the forests were mine. They gave me clothing, gave me meat. I've known you in the rivers and streams, where fish flashed and danced in the sun, where the water said, come and eat of my abundance. I have known you in the freedom of your winds.
So that was my husband. He wrote that song for the work we're doing. And so basically, it's talking about how we view the earth, and how much respect and love we have with Mother Earth. And for that reason, it's very sacred, and it's an obligation and our responsibility. It's very imperative that we learn to share and care again, which was our original way when humanity came into being. Because the only thing that's going to matter is how we relate to each other, and nobody's going to be able to fake it anymore. We'll have to look around at each other and ask and recognize who is sister and who is a brother, who is real. And this is from a quote from Art Solomon. He also worked with the Roman Catholic Church, and he has 2 daughters that are nuns. And so art here is referring to the survival of the whole creation, which we are part of. And to build on this, my parents, they grew up on the land. And so I was brought up in this teaching, the respect of love, and also to look after our earth. And my parents were both introduced to the residential school in 1930s, and also they had negative experiences. They still are able, like they're so resilient that they can still practice They're both indigenous spirituality and they're Catholicism. And they didn't do that without really forgetting their roots, despite the policy that time from the Canadian government. And one time we went to visit him, he was at the Potato Island, and CBC was there doing documentaries. And so we were talking about spirituality. And then my father, John Huckemau, told the reporter, the missionaries thought that they introduced us God, but we had known Gachimendo, the great mystery, before they were here. And even from our priest, Father Roderick Vezina, he was French, but he spoke Cree. He visited our people out on the land with the dog team because we only lived out in nature in the bush. We didn't have a community then. And he told me Native people are very spiritual. They know God because when I was traveling, I saw them on the lake. They were kneeling and their hands were raised to the great mystery. So now I go on to the foundations of life. What is that? And I will explain each element that encompasses peace and life. So number one, interconnection is the belief that humans are not separate from, but we're part of creation, the natural world, and we're all dependent on each other. And again, I say to you all my relations. And it's important that there's respect to all life. Life is a gift, and all the resources necessary for survival as our gifts. And we have the responsibility and the duty to do our part in ensuring that the good life, Minabamatason, will continue forward, and it's our stewardship. And reciprocity is the understanding that taking care of land and life on it as a whole will ensure that the land will also take care of you. Moderation is the principle to accept as a gift only what you need. And harmony is keeping all life in balance so that the life can continue, not based on survival of the 50s, but of the whole, because we need the whole to stay fit. And we have our what we call 7 grandfather teachings. It's like also in the Bible when you talk about humility, honesty. In indigenous perspective, we call them grandmother, grandfather teachings. The 2 is honesty and truth, and the goal is survival of the whole, not for personal advantage. And so based on this, I guess you could also say this whole process, what I'm presenting, it's our indigenous law. It's a natural law, and it holds many things for us, the land, the identity and peace. So indigenous environmental values, they emphasize a sacred and interconnected relationship with nature, the creation and life as a whole, and we view the land as a provider. So the land, therefore, cannot be owned, as the air we breathe cannot be owned. Thus, we cannot surrender what we don't own. Yet we need land and air to survive. So we can share land, but as we were both on the land in creation, we are responsible to the land we were put on. And therefore, we have rights to the land without owning them. And this is the sacred obligations that I mentioned. So this is less complicated than it sounds, and it's logical. The land we inherited that was given to us from the Creator, Gachimendo, is also our identity and our survival, because our people have taken care of the land since time immemorial. Our people, the Mushkegowuk, existed on the land around James Bay, and it is called our names in the winds that move all life on it. taking away people's identity would be genocide, which is by no means any road to peace. And but right now, as you can imagine, of all the presentations I heard, there's always conflict. It's not very although we envision harmony and respect, the Western system, the capitalism, is eroding this relationship. So now I leave you this, and I'll say a little bit about this project we're doing.
This is the proposed Mushkegowuk Marine Conservation Project in Hudson's Bay and James Bay. Protecting the marine ecosystem in our traditional territory means we are protecting all life for all Mother Earth.
James Bay is calling my name. James Bay is running through my veins. James Bay will always be my way. James Bay is who I am today. Home of the Mushkegowuk Cree, watching north of 60 on the telly.
So just to summarize a little bit on this particular slide, so that's one of our legal strategies to try to counteract the climate crisis. This is a government initiative project from conservation, and it's tried to protect the water, the marine project. And also what I should emphasize too is, as I referred to the opening remark we had today, I want to highlight that this James Bay lowland, it's one of the most sacred places on earth because of the peatland, the muskeg where we live. It stores all that emissions that from the atmosphere, and it's a carbon sink. So now with this mining that the government wants to do without recognition of our rights, it's going to undermine, it's going to accelerate the climate crisis, because in this carbon storage, we have about 35 billion tons of carbon that's stored in that muskeg land. So if they dig it, it's going to release the gases into the environment. And so our treaty, what we depend on the land, will be eroded. And what you see, how the water and the grass and the trees that are burning, the animals burn too, that we depend on for our food sovereignty. And I thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hukuma-Witt, for your inspiring thoughts. The two contributions invite us to further reflect on how we must broaden our understanding of peace and how crucial the nexus with environmental justice is. We now invite your questions to our two presenters. Please post them in the chat box now. And my colleague would also, Dr. Emile Ekut, will try to, together we'll try to check and make sure we get your questions. We will be attentive to the questions in the chat, and we also invite you to raise your hand if you want to speak. We will identify you to speak. So thank you very much once again to the both speakers for these very wonderful and insightful lectures. We looked at disability and climate justice, disability initiatives also showing how climate change adaptation efforts also can be inclusive. And here we see also a very broadened understanding from indigenous cultural perspective of climate justice. So you are now invited to bring up your questions, comments, and interventions. Thank you. So the floor is open.
Thank you very much. Again, also to our speakers, Angeline and Jackie, that was most insightful. And while we are waiting for the questions to be posed, may we open the conversation with both of you. And I have another question to Angeline, because this aspect of inclusion is quite interesting, because as you mentioned, it's not only about the consideration of women and girls living with disability in terms of the policy making itself, but I believe it's also important for the society as a whole to see how people living with disability can actively become agents of change, actually, in the face of the impact of climate change. So I wonder if you could expand a little bit on this aspect and your experiences on the ground in Burundi and in Rwanda.
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, you know, whenever we try to talk about disability inclusion, disability mainstreaming, people always narrow it down to accessibility. They think about buildings and how we need to create ramps for people with disabilities to enter. But there is a whole life beyond just the physical accessibility. And so through the work that we have been doing, we try as much as possible to also inbuilt in it disability mainstreaming. Now, for example, when the churches have a project that is taking care of the environment in a form of making terraces, making some vegetable gardens along the terraces, it gave us a very good opportunity to start the conversation. How can we include people with disabilities? How can they get to where these terraces are? So we do the physical accessibility, but we also do the mind shift of telling them that people with disabilities are here. They're willing to be part of this project in this village that is actually helping us to mitigate against soil erosion. And so in that process, they also look at how do we train these people? And for example, maybe the person is deaf. We will need a sign language interpreter. If the person is blind, we will need somebody to lead them to that place where the terraces are. If somebody is physically disabled, maybe using a wheelchair, they will need to make it possible for this person to move to that space and offer their gifts, offer also their efforts towards making the environment friendly again and stop climate change. But at the same time, even as we do that, there is a mental shift. There is that aspect of social inclusion where persons with disabilities have become part and parcel of their communities, because the community realizes that it is not so much that we are asking to ensure that persons with disabilities are included. Thank you.
So I'll just jump in to say, Emilia is taking question related to the first lecture. So please go ahead with questions from the first lecture, and we will take questions relating to the second lecture after. Thank you. Go ahead. Yes, Emilia, over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, Angeline, for your response. I think this awareness raising and mind shift on the level of the community as a whole is quite important. And now let me check if we have questions already. There is, one question, maybe that is to both of you. Kambe, number one, says, I'd love to know from both amazing speakers how they keep up their hope. How do you keep up your hope, Jackie, and then Angeline?
Well, it's not easy, especially when you're marginalized. But I think as an activist, and you build relationships with allies. Like I sit on the Catholic Women's League, so from there I consider them my sisters to find a way. And but it's not moving fast enough compared to the government's new policies that came out, the new laws in Canada, and it's causing a movement again from the people to protect the land, because now they want to speed up everything. And so that's how I keep my hope, is being active and writing submissions to the government if they want feedback about the new laws and what it means for us. And I try to introduce this new way of thinking, because everything is just colonial at the moment, and I'm trying to make the relationship equal, but it's not easy.
Thank you for your response, Jackie. And what about you, Angeline? What is your hope?
I will just pick it up from where Jackie has left, that by the mere fact that we are talking and people are listening, I think it gives us hope, even if they do not, act immediately. The mere fact that the table has been widened and we are able to come with our chair, because there is normally no chair for those in the margins. So we come with our chair, and they talk and we listen and they listen. That alone keeps our faith and our hope stronger to continue doing the work, because we keep knocking until the doors will be opened. And they have started opening. We can see a small light coming out, and that keeps us motivated that soon the door will be opened ajar for us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Yakubu, you are muted. Would you like to
we
ask
have
a question?
We have a hand, Chuba. Please go ahead, Chuba. You're muted. Chuba Jamir, go ahead.
You have to unmute.
It's already. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just one small questions to Sister Angelina. First thing, I maybe with my curiosity and with the limited knowledge, I think we are encouraged not to use the word as a disability. In other words, we are asked to use differently able. So I don't know, the word disability is a very right to use or not. That's one concern. Another concern is that how can we think, or how can we elaborate biblically or theologically about disability? Now, as we look into different scriptures, especially in the Bible, we found that the disability is a consequences of sin. So some churches try to leave behind in in the area of social and religious context. So when we talk about these kind of issues, I think how can we just think about this issue from the biblically? So that's a small question that I would like to put before Angelina. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, and especially on the language. It has always been very interesting when we start conversations with how do you want to be called? And that's how we have started conversations, because of the fact that language is actually the identity of the person whom you're addressing. And so in many places, especially in Asia, we hear people talking about differently abled. And we agree and we accept to use that language in Asia. But as the World Council of Churches, we looked around and saw that many other countries, especially through the United Nations and other human rights instruments, are using the word persons with disabilities. And so we decided that we will use it internationally, globally, but when we go to various contexts, we will use the language that the persons with disabilities want us to use. Because we go to some other places where they tell you they want to be called people with handicaps. That is offensive to some people, but they prefer that is the language that we use. And so we have tried to not force a specific term to persons with disabilities, but have a conversation at the very beginning of the training, at the very beginning of our discussions on what terminology we can use. And so I was using this because this is what majority have agreed that we used to conform with the language that is used by the United Nations, that is used by the majority of the countries. But when we go to Asia and we publish books in Asia, you will find the term differently abled. And then secondly, thank you very much for bringing the theological aspect of disability and how it has been equated to sin. And I will take us back, those of us who are Christians, to the parable of Jesus meeting the blind man in John chapter 9. And he asks, who has sinned? Is it this man or his parents? And that is one of the conversations that we started having together with persons with disabilities way back within the World Council of Churches in 1997. And I would really like to draw you to some of the resources that have been produced by the World Council of Churches on that conversation on persons with disabilities. Who has sinned? Is it a sin? Or is it the diversity of the creation of God? And when we talk about that, we also look at the other parables and how they have been used, because some of the healing stories have actually caused a lot of pain to persons with disabilities when they go to churches, because then when they are not healed and are able to walk, when they came without walking, what happens to them and their faith and their life after leaving this space without being able to walk. So we have very nice resources within the World Council of Churches website. Please visit and just click Eden, and they will take you to those resources that we use to train clergy and train the other people who are interested in these particular conversations in the church. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response, Angeline. I think that's perfectly correct, because I think that goes back to what you said earlier about the recognition of the full dignity and worth of all people, including those living with disability. And I think from a religious perspective and from a Christian perspective in this case, one can say that all people are principally whole. And it is important to recognize that in our relationship with one another and the created world in which we are. So let us see if we can take up other questions. Yakubu, have you identified other questions that we can read? Maybe one.
We do have
one or two more.
some comments and questions in the chat. We have some of the comments are quite long. I'll just invite you to look at them. They are just reflections, so I would not want to go through that. But there is a question here also about whether you think that diverse cultural constructions about disability and its causes impact inclusion efforts. I think you had touched a bit on this in just your last comment. Another question that is related to you also, I think that most of the questions are for the second speaker, Dr. Jacqueline, so I would like you to give it to you, Angeline, to touch on that, whether diverse constructions of about disability and its causes impact inclusion efforts.
Thank you very much. And the answer is yes, because even the onset of disability sometimes determines how this person is going to continue their lives. And that is why we have started partnering up with theological institutions. And we do have some of the institutions that are teaching the disability and theology, and mostly it is at the final year where we engage the students in training to look at the issues of disability, get to understand, because when they go into the communities, they will be the ones dealing with these questions, dealing with the parents and dealing with the persons who get the onset of disability. Because if you get a disability when you're still young and at the age of maybe 0, your outlook will be different from somebody who gets a disability in a later stage in life. And so how do we equip the people around you? We equip the clergy, we equip the communities, and equip even the family members to journey together with this particular person. Because some of the places, especially in the third world, are not able to have the early interventions that are needed. For example, if you are born with club foot and you are living in a country, say maybe in Asia, you will not get the same interventions as a person who gets club foot and is living in, say, Europe or North America. It will also be different when you are in a rural community or you're in an urban community. It's also different when you're poor and when you're rich. And so all these diversities, because we are trying to enable the onset to be dealt with at the very beginning of your impairment or your disability, we have been trying to bring this into theological training, and also to have support groups in our congregations to know how to help identify and get the intervention that is needed, but also for the lifelong support of families and persons with disabilities.
Thank you very much for this very important and powerful ideas about how awareness can be raised, and also to provide ongoing support to people with disability. I would like to start now going to you, Dr. Jackie, just to look at some questions that have been posted that are specifically for you. The first question is from Nora, who wants to thank you very much for this inspirational speech, and that your presentation, she wants you to know that your presentation has generated a lot of emotions from the audience. And I believe this is positive and powerful. But then how can we join you in your fight? And what can people do to change things? So please take note of that question. I will read another question. You will answer both at a go. There is another message I'll read because it's like an epistle to you. It says, "Dear Jackie, as you were speaking, I was finding many common themes and values between your indigenous spirituality and the scriptural passages in the Bible that speak of creation care. However, the result has been different from a Christian Western culture than what has been for your people. I think I perceive what has caused this difference result in the way you started by saying our understanding of life is based on our spirituality and the following of the 7 grandfather and grandmother teachings. These are for the survival of the folk, not for personal advantage. In the dominant version of Christianity worldwide, people's spirituality is mostly experienced as an individual experience and for personal salvation, even eternal life, not a restored relationship with earth." So this is a very interesting question, an individualistic conception of Christianity, as opposed to really this idea of the common good that you talked about in understanding our relationship with the earth. The commentator here wants to hear your opinion about that. Thank you.
So I think it's philosophical. For us, it's philosophical, based on our worldview, and it's not quite in equal relations with the Western system. So I think, first of all, for some active representation, because Canada, they had started this Paris Agreement, and now of this new politics because of what Trump created with building nation and threatening to come take all our diamonds and nickel, it started this movement from the government to change the policies. They made new laws without our consultations. So, and because this is international and everything happens through UN, and the Pope plays his politics too, I think what would need to happen is that we have our foot in the system, that we have a table to sit with these people, at the UN level, or if the Pope is doing something, maybe that we have invitations to be able to attend these presentations so that we can present our worldview, what it means for us as Indigenous people, as a collective person representing my collective people, the nation. our worldview is based on a nation. It's a way of life, and it's also the philosophy is also it's the foundation of our Aboriginal law. So when we talk about treaties, it's not just about land and private ownership. That's also a very Eurocentrical way of looking at the mediation or negotiations. We have our own belief system, and that's the basis of our own natural laws, that we want the master in this case to consider when we sit and negotiate about the land. And also, if there's going to be development, it should operate on the principle of sustainability, which is not harmful for the environment. Like if you look at our land, it's beautiful. There's polar bears, and why can't we do more on tourism? So that's just one example. And also, because the government they wanted our land, they introduced policies, laws, and that they were very colonial, and they were also genocidal, because one Prime Minister, John MacDonald, he targeted Native people. He called us savages. So policies created through the introduction of residential schools was meant to destroy who we are as Native people. And the reason is because then when we forget who we are, then the land is free. We cease to argue from who we are as Indigenous people of Canada. So you have to be very careful how questions are, because nowhere do I want to undermine our political position as we advocate what human rights, what Aboriginal rights means in the international legal context. I hope that answers. And also, yes, I should mention the land is also healing. So my parents, although they went to residential school, it's not to say that they came out damaged. There was a lot of damage. There were all sorts of abuses. And even my mom's brother and cousins disappeared. I'm still searching what happened to them. So we need accessibility to records from Catholic institutions to trace, and so because of that, there was a lot of social impacts, but they went back to the land because that's where we live, out on the land, and they still practice. And because the trauma is compounded by drugs, young people are dying at the fast rate, and it's the highest in Canada for Native Indigenous people. So, but we're still advocating to go back on the land because land is healing. Land is where we do our ceremonies. We reconnect, we heal what was fractured in our mind, in our spirit. We reclaim, we're being resilient about it.
Thank you very much. Your answer has touched on the next question about the residential school, looking at the relationship between capitalism and care for creation. And is an example that capitalism doesn't have the power to erode our relationship with creation. Is that, and can you maybe touch on that? And then also, it will be interesting to hear from you, how has the presence of the Catholic faith changed the traditional worldviews of the Cree community, I will say? You've told us so much about the Cree culture, but has the Catholic Church presence impacted on that, on the culture, especially worldviews of the people? And then you can relate it to the impact of the residential schools, which you just mentioned, and also look at capitalism. Can capitalism take us away completely from our values, especially our relationship with creation? And the last question here on the chat is also, to what extent should religious philanthropical initiatives be involved in curbing climate and environmental menace in navigating our spirituality? So talking about religious philanthropic initiatives, to what extent should they contribute to curbing climate and environmental menace, especially by helping to navigate that spiritually? Another question is in French, and I will invite a French speaker to help us read that. My colleague,
Yes,
would you?
Yakubu, yes, I would love to, but I have also the task to manage a little bit our time, unfortunately. So we would need to make a selection, and I would kindly ask our audience for their kind understanding. And I found it interesting how you, Jackie, established also the connection with Debjani's earlier contribution, or when she introduced us to carbon as a kind of diagnostic portal. And in a way, you take this up now by saying that the land of your community is also endangered by this type of threats, and maybe this is something that the last question also wants to lift up. How can that be navigated, and how can the types of spiritualities that you highlighted contribute to a type of resistance, with a short answer if possible, and then we round off for this part. Could you yes, now we hear you.
So it's a little overwhelming and confusing, because I was reflecting on the questions that Yakuba mentioned, and now so I'll try to summarize. I'll try to keep sending them, but I think the critical response, again, I want to emphasize indigenous rights are accepted on the international level, and it's based on our indigenous worldview. And through that, there's ceremonies, rituals, activities we do on the land for healing, and to heal our fractured relationships with our minds, with our relatives, within ourselves also, because it is this what we restore that will heal us and protect us from taking something that is alien and harmful to our being, whether it's drugs. And also, if we're talking about other resource development, we had that experience already with the diamond company, and because our people are suffering from social, like inadequate housing and poor health, we took what came, and we thought with our negotiations we protect our land, our water, and the negative social impacts towards us as Native people. But it was very challenging. At the end, the mine, they finished what they came for. They were there for 7 years. So there's no more open pit diamond mine. But what's left is mercury in the water. And also the court found the diamond company, De Beers, that they violated the environmental monitoring regulations. All they got was a slap on the wrist, $100 fine. But when you look overall in the Native community, the water is contaminated with mercury. We depend on water for healing, for food sustainability, whether it's for food, fishing, or for our moose, the caribou, they depend on that too. And also, we were involved in a study for health impacts. And what the scientists found was that the young women of childbearing age had a lot of mercury, and that there would be serious implications in the long term should they bear children. So what's happening now, there's seem to be cluster of children developing autism. So and there's no help for these kids on our community. There's no special facilities for kids that are disabled. So, it's very challenging. So I think that's how I can answer for now due to constraint with time. And I think if I was to accept any help with philosophy programs, it would be that to be respectful with the indigenous people, and also to listen and to learn from us and to help us on the international level. Because I think at the beginning, Canada was hosting this Paris Agreement. So when you want to help, go back there and then go after our Canadian government to say, did you forget your commitment? Please, with your new laws, it's going to undermine, it's going to accelerate when they start digging in our peatland. The green gases will be emitted into the atmosphere, and that will not help the world. It's not only for indigenous people, it's the collective, it's the whole universe, because we're the gatekeepers with the peatland. It protects the whole planet. So what you do to it, it protects the whole. So it hits you too, wherever you are in this country. Mingush, thank you.
Thank you so very much, Jackie, and once again also to Angeline. I think truly your contributions in different ways have enriched us and broadened our horizon. You asked the question of what is life at the beginning, Jackie, and you, Angeline, you brought us a strong and deep insight into what it means to conduct advocacy and to have a human rights approach in order to promote inclusion and to foster a peace that is truly lasting and considering all people so that life is possible on this earth. Thank you so much. Thank you to Yakubu for co-moderating this session. And
so, meanwhile, perhaps some are still making a break. I just would like to say what we would like to do in the last half of an hour of this long and very intense and interesting day. And I would like to say it with a photo. Please, Christian, could you show the photo? Thank you. We have seen the symbol of the seedling sometimes today in some presentations. And I think a lot of us can see in this little seedling like a symbol for all what we like, what you hope that will be growing in future, like peace and peace on the earth, peace with the earth, a symbol for all we hope. We see also the hands that can be seen as a symbol for human hands, for all what we humans can do, working, doing something, achieving something, going into action. But I think the hands can also be a symbol for all that holds us, like our values, our spiritualities, our religion, our respect, love, spirituality. So now the question at the end of the day, the focus would be, how can we translate and transform our spiritualities into actions towards peace with the earth, towards that what we want to see growing. And we have 4 persons here with us from different contexts, different cultures, different spiritualities, different religions, who will go into a discussion about this. As we won't have too much time to open the discussion to you all, please write, nevertheless, your comments and questions and ideas in the chat so we can pick them up for tomorrow for our action plan. First of all, I want to greet my colleague Monica Trevino Alvarez, who will moderate with me this discussion. And then please, I hand over to my colleague Simone Dollinger to present one of our guests, Sophia. Please, Simone.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I will do the presentation of our next guest in Spanish, so please follow the translation if you need that. Me complace presentarles a Sofía Nicolasa.
It's a great pleasure for me to present to you Sofia Chipana from Bolivia, from the population of Banara. So a warm welcome to you into this space. Sofia Chipana describes herself as a person that walks together. She walks together with communities that want to connect and interact with the communities of the Americas. She calls it deciding a texture. It's all about a metaphor in the context of the Andes in Bolivia. And we're going to listen to more from her. Sofia Chipana, she is part of the Andina population and also indigenous women who are wise. And Abiawala is an important word that means that it's a mature earth for the indigenous people of Panama and Colombia. Abiana is used in America to define itself as the unity of the American population of decolonization. In this context, Sofia Chipana is looking for communities. Here, it also has to do with the concept of living well, emphasizes the force of spirituality, interchange, and in this part of the life. As a theologist, Sofia Chipana knows about the biblical and the Christian people and the studies of socio-religious studies, so with diversity. Sophia, we're very much interested in knowing how this concept of spirituality goes together with a metaphor, so with the life in action, with peace and with the whole earth. Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's wonderful to be here with you, and it's very significant for me. I sent here a picture to present this notion of this as an Andine population. We see life as a big community of reciprocal communities. Here we've got the picture, and so this shows the diverse relationships that we all have and the various life communities. So in this vision of life, we've got the various cloths, but it's just another thread that flows in the correspondence. From this side, we have a consciousness that all of us, each and every one of us, we are interlaced. We act together in this interconnection that we have in the communities. We've got the consciousness that all of our actions are interconnected and have their repercussions. So in that sense, we are planting that we're saying that we cannot be separated. Peace on this planet and peace with the planet. These are realities and they go together. So with this consciousness of these reciprocal situations of life, and for life, we want and need to feel part of this big tissue, and it's like a kind of we need to also look after this tapestry, this weaving. It's all interwoven, and we can only, this is called a community of life, and it came in 2018 when we as a whole were thinking of how to live together and how do we feel and how can we live together. And when we had this relationship of interconnectivity with all lives, everything that is alive, and this fabric, this weaving, interwovenness is also comes back to spirituality, which is very, very symbolic. All of us, we are interrelated, we interact with each other. So there I'd like to invite you to feel this, because all of us, we've got this ancestral memory that we need to find again. Thank you so much, Sophia. Now we are within the topic, so thank you so much.
That we first will now present the other three persons so that we can afterwards go into a dialogue. Is that okay for you? So please, Amelie, would you present Kesho, please?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce you to a young change maker. Kesho Isaiah is coming from Kenya, and he is representing the Maasai community. Karibu, Kesho, and it's a pleasure having you here. We have met in person, and so I'm particularly glad that you could have accepted our invitation to join us in this forum. Kesho is a young climate activist and at the same time an environmental champion. He was selected last year as part of a group of 12 young leaders from different countries for the Kofi Annan Changemaker Initiative. And in this context, these young leaders have been offered a space to dialogue and also to share about their perspectives and actions over deep concerns that they have. We spoke earlier on about the importance to consider youth in their leadership, and I think that Kesho really stands for this active participation and leadership of young people. He is also the founder of the New Lion Project, a project that was created with the goal to bring together the strength of businesses, the heart of nonprofits, and the creativity of storytellers on eradicating food security. So the aim is focused on making the unheard heard, amplifying their voices and empowering particularly indigenous youth voices. in view of influencing the global policies through methods like storytelling, policy advocacy, research, and grassroots projects. So we are very interested to hear from you, Keshu, a little bit later how you expect to lead action by these methods. I now hand over to Janet, who will introduce to you our next panelist.
Buenas tardes, gracias Amelie. Es un gusto saludarlos.
Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm going to present Julio, who is a young lawyer, 38 years old, and he's been here for the people in Peru. Julio was born, and he remembers that from his grandfather who died and who worked in the mines and lost his life through the mines and he never received any help from the government, and he suffered from living and working in the mines, and he studied law and specialized to defend the rights of the most vulnerable of Mother Earth and the environment. And when he's 16 years old, he started to accompany indigenous people, also the Quechua community, also the native people, and he has learned, and he is convinced of recognizing the rights of all the elements of nature, whether it's water, soil, air, fire, everything, also the living beings, everything that lives, plants, everything. And when I asked Julio what was the best thing you learned in this experience, it was to strengthen my own identity. Julio is now accompanying to fight for Peru, for the rights for women and defenders of the earth. The first step was made when he was recognized by the government, and he keeps on fighting, something that in these days in Peru, it's that all the violations, everything's being violated, human rights, nature rights, everything. So having lawyers who compromise, like Dr. Julio Meya, is what we're looking for. They are so scarce. The normal actors, the normal lawyers that we know do not understand how they can say that natural resources are living beings. It's incredible. It's that the National Association of Water of Peru wrote a letter asking whether this is really something living, whether this is a right to be. And so I would like to share with you, and it's a big honor to present you Julio, who's a young, very valued young lawyer who defends all living beings. Warm welcome, Julio. Thank you so much. Warm welcome. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you.
We have another guest, and once again, please, Amelie, it's your turn to present another person.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Yes, we have the extreme pleasure to welcome Professor Meera Bindu, who joins us from India. Thank you very much, Meera, for being part of this panel and our forum. Professor Meera Bindu is a philosopher, an educator, an interfaith scholar. She is an associate professor at the Manipal Academy of Higher Education in India, trained in philosophy with a doctorate in environmental humanities. Her work bridges environmental ethics, Indian philosophical traditions, and also feminist thoughts with a strong engagement in interfaith dialogue. She is also a prolific writer, and she is widely engaged with different religious communities and networks, and is in conversation on a broad array of topics from climate justice over caste and gender discrimination to the radical inclusivity that involves an active way of dismantling systemic barriers and the creation of spaces where everyone feels valued. She has spoken on Hindu perspectives in global forums on ecology, liberation theology, and interreligious dialogue across many international platforms. Her current research explores inter alia place-based philosophy, where she, among others, links ecology, ritual, and cultural meaning to wider interfaith conversations on justice and sustainability. Mira, we are very interested how Indian philosophy and Hindu religion can contribute to peace with the earth and can factually lead to action, and especially how interreligious and transcultural dialogue can enrich taking action. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Amelie. I'm sure the dialogue will be very interesting.
Thank you. So, as time is running, I prefer to just go into the thematic of spirituality and what is part of what I have heard, part of your spiritualities that we could try to translate, not only perhaps in your context, but to learn from your context and to share in this. So I hand over to Monica, please, to give your first question, please, to ask your first question.
Yeah, of course. So, Sophia, firstly, we want to ask you and to all our audience, can this image interconnection become a global spiritual and activist language? It's about the tejido and the image that you have shown us before. Oh, yeah, I can ask in Spanish without any problem. Sofía,
could you maybe tell us about the image of this woven tissue? How can this be translated into a spiritual activist movement? Yes, of course, with pleasure. It's part of the consciousness that we ancient people have, but this is a tissue that is part of a cosmic a cosmic relation that we all have, because we are part of this community of life, and this consciousness also brings us back to reciprocal and a mutual looking after each other. We need to wake this consciousness that we look after each other and ourselves, and we also need this this capacity to look after the other beings. If we're talking about beings of water, of life, and all the others, you know, the birds and all of them, that we have different communities. So this consciousness brings us to beings a lot more in relationship, and this necessity to look after life. Thank you so much, Sophia. So I think that really helps us to learn more about spirituality and also to promote peace. Alexandra, I don't know if you'd like to continue with the next question. Yes. Thank you very much for this image of this weaving, this tissue.
Kesho, my question to you is, you call your project the New Lion project. So what about the lion? What symbolizes the lion for you?
Thank you so much for the question and also for having me today here in the forum. And the metaphor of the new lion comes from the historic action of the Maasai community, one of the biggest events during the times whereby the warriors has to hunt the lion, especially as a way of transforming themselves to a different age. So killing a lion was a way of showing bravery, leadership, and also commitment as a young leader and transforming to a different stage. So for the Maasai, killing a lion was a big deal and also was a big action. And now when it's come to the New Lion project, where we draw the name, is the fact that the new lion has now changed. We no longer kill the lion. We no longer kill the lion that is in the forest, like what people used to do to show their bravery. The new lion has changed. It has changed the form. And now the new lion is biodiversity laws, climate change, and challenges that we have all over the world. And now the new warriors are now the new champions, the voices, the perspectives, and also the arms, the arrows that warriors used to fight for the lion are now the policies, the implementation, the ways and approaches that young leaders are using to solve present challenges. So for the New Lion project, the name comes from the iconic and also historical part of the Maasai and remembered event that they used to kill lions, and it happened to our dads and also our grandfathers. But for us now, everything has changed. We don't kill the lions, but the new lion is what we are now doing, fighting for pressing challenges, amplifying our voices, carrying each and every effort to bring solutions to the society. Yeah.
So you transformed an old tradition into something new for the new challenges of the world. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's more of like a framework now that now being used to influence the policies, a cultural framework that influence the policies, build the leadership. Yeah.
I really would like to ask Julio and Mera if you have these changes of traditions also, but before I think we should take us the time to just see the beginning of a video of Kesho, just to see how the Maasai are celebrating this.
In Maasai culture, warriors once hunted lions to protect their people. But today, the lion has taken a new form. Climate change is a new lion. And the young voices are its new warriors. Coming from the Maasai community, being on the front line of the climate crisis, the New Land Project seeks to amplify the voice of unheard from the community, whereby we need to push for them to be involved in decision-making pools and also policy.
I run an organization called Tembea Make an Impact that focuses on environmental advocacy, community empowerment, and inspire youths to be at the forefront of making positive impacts in their communities.
Being a nature guide is a role where to link up the people and nature and environment. So I always make sure I respect their wildlife habitat, their space, and their behavior.
It's really better for us to start a cultural village that will be able to have young people and women coming up together, sharing their culture with the whole world. At the same time, we are proud as Maasai. We have never been shy in terms of sharing our culture with the whole world. So it is an inspiration for us, the young graduate from the university also coming back and also trying to show the whole world that now it's really concerned for us to go back to nature and at the same time trying to conserve the culture.
The Maasai struggle is a microcosm of the global fight for climate justice. Their stories resonate with communities worldwide, inspiring a collective effort to protect our planet and its people. Our knowledge, passed down through generations, is our strongest weapon in the fight for our planet. Our lands, our people, our future are at stake. The time for action is now.
Thank you very much, Tesho, for showing us this video. I'm not Maasai, but it's speaking to me. So it seems that there are symbols and metaphors that can be shared with other nations and cultures also.
Thank you.
Please, Monica. I hope that Julio is still here. Or
okay.
Did he drop out?
Maybe I can only ask the question and see if he continue with us.
He's not here.
Yes, okay. I'm afraid he dropped out.
He dropped out, so just continue with the question to Mira, perhaps.
Okay, perfect. So, Miran, you have an emphasis on interreligious dialogue. Could you please explain why this is so important for peace, not only on, but with the earth?
Thank you so much. It was wonderful being a part of a community that speaks the same language that we do. Spirituality, nature, peace, human rights, and also a little bit of anger and a little bit of hope. And I think this kind of sums up my whole engagement with interreligious dialogue, because when I started working with people, I realized, as somebody pointed out, a large part of our population is religious and spiritual. In fact, there are more spiritual people than there are scientists and other climate change people. And one of the things that brings people to action is spirituality and religion. It's very easy when I have as a professor, I do two kinds of things, and I'm also a yoga teacher. So when I call people for a bhajan sabha, for a religious gathering, I have about 50 people turning up in my house. But when I have an exhibition on tidal waves and loss of biodiversity, I have about 10 PhD students and some 3 professors coming to my house to see the exhibition. So it's very interesting how religion brings people together, right? And the second thing, what I realized is religions, when I worked with Interfaith, I realized the doxa are different. The context, the texts that we draw our inspiration from, whether it be the Bible, or it be the Bhagavad Gita, or it be the Quran, or it be the Guru Granth Sahib, or some other teachings of any other religious leader, the doxa, the ideas that come from there are different. So when we argue from that, and there is no dialogue possible, because if I call pink red, and you call pink blue, there's no way we can actually come together. But what we can do is we both point to it, one says red and the other says blue, but we both can take that, whatever red and whatever blue is, and wear that cloth. So action or ritual or tradition or story is where people come together in dialogue. So whether you plant a tree for Allah, or you plant it for the great creation, or you plant it for the great Lord Shiva, or you plant it because they are your sister and brother in an indigenous culture, or the bear came and told you to plant it in your ancestral grandfather's village. Planting the tree brings us together. So rituals, as my worthy friend now, young friend, has actually done, he's done a very right thing, reimagining our traditions and recapturing our traditional values inside the dialogue of climate change. And this can happen interculturally, because it's not important why you're planting it. It could be your faith and belief, whichever God, but the action becomes spiritual. And when the action has got spirituality behind it, there's a force. It makes us do things. And that's why we find religious leaders are actually at a lot of forefront of helping people, whether they are people with differently abled or with disability, or they are also at the forefront of climate change, of just finance. So I've seen in India, one of the biggest movements that we actually got done through religious leaders was the dismissal of 377, which was the like gender neutrality and homosexuality was criminalized. And all the religious leaders got together from all religions, and they signed a document and sent it to the government and says, we religious leaders do not believe in discrimination based on gender and sexuality. And that law got removed. It was a dismissal of that law. And so I have seen the power of religion to transform people from a silent, peaceful community to a violent mob. I've also seen religion transform a violent mob into a silent, peaceful community. Religion and religious spirituality, the words of religion and spirituality have power, and the words of culture and tradition also have power. It evokes passion, and where there's passion, there's action. And I think that's where we have to, the language of spirituality, when I heard all my speakers speak, whether it's metaphors or it is ideas, I find them using the language of passion and emotion. And in that hand, that is care. And care doesn't exist in dry philosophical ethics. Care exists in motherhood and the love of God and the love of creatures. So that hand is caring. And that's feminist ethics too, right? Because mothers know how to care. They will also slap their child, but they will also pick it up and care for it. So it's not that floozy mother helicopter parenting. It's that mother who cares in the right way for the planet. So we are taking on the feminist care ethics in that. And that is where I think interreligious dialogue is very important. And mediation of the dialogue through rationality, through philosophy, through peace is important. So peace forms the context for interreligious dialogue that forms the platform for action and action plans. And this is how you go. Peace is the context. And when there is peace, there is interreligious dialogue. And when there's dialogue, there's call for action. And when there's call for action, there is action. So I think that is how we build it up. So peace underlies climate change, justice, and all those things. So peace is, that's why we say, Om, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It is such a common thing in all Hindu texts. We end with Shanti. Shanti is so important. Shanti means peace.
Thank you very much, Mira, for advocating for the role of spiritualities and religions in our societies. But now we have an advocate here. Estoy encantada, Julio, que estás aquí de nuevo. ¿Qué dice un abogado?
Thank you for being back, Julio. What does a lawyer say when we talk about the law? What can the law say to act for peace, for the peace of the earth?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Ahora estoy justamente con
Now I'm with the Organization of Women in Titicaca. Judicially, we do recognize the rights and what they're looking for, and I'm helping them is what we want to have a change in civilization that converts this relation, human nature, that goes from exploitation to co-responsibility, that stops seeing nature as an object, as a thing, for use and starts being a right with intrinsic rights. This means that nature has a value in itself that needs to be protected, and this is why we need to reconfigure the laws, the political practice, the economies, the education, and the spirituality to be able to keep life. And so this vision, nature integrates ecological rights, intercultural dialogue and governance that's participative, where the origins are here for the management of nature, to be able to see nature as a part of our society. Thank you.
Even in law, spirituality seems to be very important. Thank you very much. I see the time is running too fast. We needed more time to discuss, and luckily we have tomorrow. So thank you, Monica. Thanks to you all, Mira, Kesho, and Julio, and Sophia for being here. And I hand back to Amelie, please, to wrap up the day, please.